This happened a few weeks ago. I'm a 32-year-old landscape photographer, and I often spend late nights in the fields to catch the sunset light. It was supposed to be an ordinary night, but it turned strange. After packing my gear, I glanced at the edge of the field. I saw a dark shape there. At first, I thought it was just a shadow from the trees. I shrugged it off and started walking home, but I felt uneasy. Something felt wrong. The air seemed cooler, heavier. My heart raced as I hurried home, but the feeling didn't leave when I shut the door. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I kept catching glimpses of that dark shape in my peripheral vision. It was irritating. I tried focusing on my photography, but every shot felt off. I didn't know if my mind was playing tricks or if that thing was influencing me somehow. Then one morning, I found prints outside my front door. They were deep, almost like something heavy had stalked right up to my home. I didn't recognize the footprints. I felt cold dread crawl up my spine, but I tried convincing myself it was just my imagination. I called some friends, hoping to ease my mind. They listened, but looked at me like I was losing it. "You're overthinking it," they said. Their response didn't help. It got worse as the days passed. I'd sit on my porch, listening to the breeze. When the wind blew, I could swear I heard whispers coming from the field. They were faint, like forgotten voices whispering secrets long lost. I tried pushing the thought away. It was just the wind, right? But every time I heard those whispers, I felt chills on my skin. My friends tried to distract me, but I could see them pull away. Their concern was clear, and that bothered me even more. Then one night, I felt drawn back to the field. I needed to see that shape. The sky was darker than I expected, clouds hanging low. And then I saw it again, standing right at the edge of the field, closer this time. My heart started pounding. I felt watched. I called out, "Is anyone there?" But it was quiet, except for the wind. Panic hit me, and I knew I needed to get out of there. I turned to run, but then I heard it, a low, raspy voice whispering my name. I stumbled home, my heart racing. I had no idea how I got back so fast, but now I wonder about that voice. Was it real? Was that shadow following me? I can't escape the feeling that whatever I saw that night has not left me. Maybe I'm imagining things, or maybe that darkness is growing inside me. I can't tell anymore, and that thought terrifies me. Every night now, I listen. What if it comes back? What if it never left? At all? The next day was a blur. I barely functioned at work. My mind was clouded. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until I could go home. As soon as I got off, I drove straight to the local library. I needed answers. I spent hours reading about strange occurrences in the area, legends, stories of shadows and whispers. The more I read, the more unsettled I felt. I found a few mentions of a dark shape seen near the river at night, always around the same time I was out in the field. I jotted down everything I could find, but nothing explained what was happening to me. That night, I sat on my porch, staring into the darkness. The field loomed in the distance. I wanted to feel brave, but every rustle in the wind sent a shiver down my spine. Then, as if on cue, I heard the whispers again. They were louder this time. "Help me," it seemed to say. Confusion washed over me. Was I just imagining it? I couldn't ignore it. I grabbed my flashlight and made my way to the field. I felt ridiculous for wandering out there again after what happened. Yet the pull was too strong. It was like I was being called, and I didn't like it one bit. As I stepped onto the soft grass, my heart raced, pounding in my ears. I aimed my flashlight toward the tree line, but there was nothing there. Just silence. I scanned the field, trying to see if that dark shape would appear again. Each second felt like an hour. I waited, breath held, hoping this was just a tempest of my mind. Then, I saw something, a flicker at the edge of the trees. I stifled a gasp. My instinct screamed at me to turn back, but curiosity gnawed at me. I took a tentative step forward. Before I could react, I tripped over something solid in the ground. I fell hard, and dust flew up around me. As I pushed myself off the ground, my hand brushed against something cold and wet. It was a bone. The shock froze me in place. It was small, maybe an animal, or something else entirely. I fumbled with my flashlight, but it flickered and died. Darkness engulfed me. Panic surged as I fumbled in my bag for my phone. I flipped it on and shone the light around. The beam illuminated my surroundings, and I caught sight of a shadow shifting near the trees. It wasn't just the shape from before, it was moving. Fear coursed through me. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy. Just as I gathered my thoughts to escape, I heard it again, that low, raspy voice whispering my name. Come closer. That chilling command clawed at my sanity. My heart raced, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. I had to get out. I turned and ran, stumbling on the uneven ground. Suddenly, I tripped again, this time falling to the ground hard. Now I could sense it. It was right behind me. I scrambled back to my feet and sprinted toward home. Every instinct screamed at me to look back, to see what was chasing me, but I couldn't. I raced through the door, slamming it shut, but the whispers didn't stop. They echoed in my mind. And as I leaned against the door, I realized with a sinking feeling that this nightmare wasn't over. That was just the beginning. I hardly slept that night. Each creak of the house felt like a whisper. Every shadow seemed alive. I buried my head under the blankets, hoping I could hide from whatever was haunting me. The darkness turned against me, and the memories of the night replayed like a broken record. I had to figure out what I stumbled onto in that field. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I went to work, but I wasn't present. My colleagues asked if I was okay, but I just smiled and nodded. I focused on my tasks, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the library. I knew I had to go back and dig deeper. After work, I made my way to the library again. As I walked through the aisles, I felt like every book was hiding something. My hands shook as I searched the shelves, looking for anything that could explain what was happening. I found more local legends about the river and the field, stories of people going missing, and sightings of shadowy figures. My stomach twisted. Then I stumbled upon a dusty old book tucked away in the corner. The cover was cracked and peeling, with no title. Flipping through the pages, I found illustrations of the dark shape, along with warnings of an ancient curse that befell those who uncovered its secrets. My breath caught in my throat. It felt all too familiar. I jotted down a few notes and hurried back home, anxious to piece together the puzzle. Once inside, I locked the door behind me, drawing the curtains tight. The whispers had left me on edge, and I needed to focus. Hours passed as I studied the notes I had gathered. Just as I was about to dive into the final page, my phone buzzed. I jumped, heart racing. It was a text from my friend Tom, asking if I wanted to join him for dinner. I hesitated, but decided it might be good to take a break. As I was getting ready, another message flashed on my screen. Don't go back to the field. A chill raced down my spine. I didn't recognize the number. Was it a prank? My mind raced with worry. I needed to warn Tom, but what if he didn't believe me? I tried to brush it off, convincing myself it was just someone messing with me. Dinner with Tom would be good. For me. I needed to feel normal again, if only for a little while. When I arrived at the diner, Tom was sitting in a booth, waving me over. We chatted about work, but I couldn't shake the unease creeping into my mind. I felt like the darkness from the field was trailing behind me, waiting for an opportunity. Then, as we were about to order, I noticed something odd. Tom kept glancing past me, his smile tightening. I turned to see what he was looking at. That was when I felt it, a presence just behind me. I didn't need to look to know something was there. My heart thundered in my chest as I turned slowly. It was too late to escape this time. I turned around, and there it was, a figure wrapped in shadow, nearly blending into the dim light of the diner. My stomach dropped. The people around us laughed and chatted, oblivious to the threat that loomed just behind me. The figure was tall, just at the edge of my vision, dark and unmoving. I forced myself to take a breath. "Tom?" I whispered, my voice barely escaping my throat. He turned to face me, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm as he registered the fear in my eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, searching the space behind me. I eyed the figure, but it was gone. Had I imagined it? There was something there, I stammered. Something dark. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like it's following me. Tom blinked, and the confusion returned. "Are you feeling okay? Maybe you need to take a minute." Before I could respond, a chill swept through the diner. The lights flickered, and a hush fell over our table. I could see the unease mirrored in Tom's eyes. Something was definitely off. "I think we should leave," I said, suddenly aware of how trapped I felt in that moment. I grabbed my things, ready to bolt. As we walked to the door, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. I half expected to see that figure again, but it was just strangers, oblivious to my terror. The night air hit us like a wave as we stepped outside. I breathed deeply, trying to shake off the lingering dread. "Are you okay?" Tom asked, concern etched on his face. "I just need to figure this out. There's something at that field," I replied, "and I think it has to do with that book I found." Tom's expression turned serious. "Do you want to go back there? You don't have to do this alone." I hesitated, memories of that shape clawing at my mind. "I do need to go back, but it's dangerous." "Nothing is more dangerous than whatever that is," he said, gesturing back to the diner. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. We made a plan. The morning sun would rise, and we would go back together. But deep down, I knew that whatever was out there was more than just a dark shadow. It wanted something from me, something I had yet to uncover. As we drove back to my place, the tension in the air thickened. The streets were quiet, but just beyond the glow of the streetlights, I felt that something was watching us. The moment we parked, I froze. My heart raced as I noticed something on my doorstep. It was a dark figure, watching us with a knowing stillness. I leaned closer to Tom. "I think it's here." He wet his lips nervously. "We need to get inside now." But as we started for the door, the figure moved. I felt a scream building in my throat, but it never came out. In an instant, the shadow lunged towards us. It was too late. I barely had a moment to react when the figure lunged. Adrenaline surged through me, and I grabbed Tom's arm, pulling him away from the door. We stumbled backward, desperate to put space between us and whatever nightmare had manifested at my doorstep. The shadow stopped short, its form shifting as if it were made of smoke. It rippled and darkened, growing more substantial, more terrifying. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat urging me to run. "What is that?" Tom gasped, eyes wide. "I don't know," I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. "We have to get inside." As we turned to run, I felt a cold breeze whip past us. The door swung open before we even reached it, revealing a dark interior that felt suddenly hostile. I caught a glimpse of something stirring in the shadows of my home, and dread washed over me. "Go!" I shouted again, shoving Tom through the doorway. I followed, slamming the door shut behind us. The sound echoed eerily in the silence, and I pressed my back against the wood, breathing heavily. But the moment of solace was short-lived. The figure began to knock against the door, each thud resonating like a drum in the stillness. I felt my pulse race. It was here, and we were trapped. "Do you have anything?" Tom said, looking around frantically. "Like what? A weapon?" I replied, my mind racing. "I don't even know what we're dealing with." The shadow continued its assault, and I felt like it could break through at any moment. In a desperate move, I grabbed my phone from my pocket. "I'll call for help," I said, but my hands trembled so much I could barely dial. "Is there somewhere we can hide?" Tom asked, scanning the room. I motioned towards the basement door. "We could try down there." My heart sank as I said it. The basement had always given me the creeps. Without waiting for an answer, I dashed to the basement door. Tom followed, and we descended the steps into darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, but the bulb flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "This isn't good," Tom whispered, his voice tinged with fear. "I know," I replied, my voice barely a murmur. "But we have to stay quiet. Maybe it'll go away." But as soon as I finished speaking, I heard a scraping sound above us. The figure was inside the house. A sudden realization hit me like a punch. It had followed us in. "What are we going to do?" Tom said, panicking. "Just stay quiet," I urged, my heart racing. But a seed of dread had been planted. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow had come for me, and what it wanted was lurking just out of reach. Then everything went dark. The basement lights flickered out, leaving us in total blackness. I reached for Tom's hand, and when I found it, the grip felt cold and clammy. "It can't see us down here," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. But before I could finish my thought, I heard breathing, heavy and low. Someone was in the basement with us. The sound sent a jolt of ice down my spine. I squeezed Tom's hand tighter, hoping he could feel my racing pulse. The breathing was slow and deliberate, punctuating the darkness like a terrifying metronome. "Did you hear that?" Tom's whisper came out shaky. I felt his anxiety radiate against my skin. I didn't respond. Instead, I strained to listen, letting the silence thicken around us. The breathing, was it just one person? I couldn't tell. Suddenly, the sound shifted, as if whatever was in the shadows shifted its weight, almost as if it were gauging us. I had to think. "Tom," I whispered, "we need to find something, anything." I let go of his hand and started to feel my way along the dusty wooden shelf lining the basement wall. Old tools clattered against each other, a reminder that my house had once been filled with life, not whatever was lurking now. Then I found it, a heavy metal pipe. I gripped it tightly, feeling the roughness of its surface beneath my fingers. "I've got something," I breathed, though it barely calmed my racing heart. "Good. What do we do now?" Tom asked, dread evident in his voice. We both turned our heads toward the source of the breathing. It seemed impossibly close. "Maybe we should back away slowly," I suggested, trying to keep my voice steady. I could feel the darkness pressing in, an almost tangible force. As we backed away, I thought I caught a glimpse of a figure emerging from the corner of my eye, but when I turned my head, there was nothing. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Maybe it was my imagination. But the breathing seemed to quicken, as if whatever was with us was excited or agitated. My stomach twisted. "Whatever it is, it knows we're here," I managed to say, but the very notion sent dread pooling in my gut. Then, unexpectedly, a faint glimmer of light flickered in the corner. I turned back to Tom. "Did you see that?" "No," he stammered, his expression a mix of disbelief and fear. "Where? I don't see anything." But I had seen it. The barest hint of movement, almost like shadows dancing in a rhythm against the wall. I glanced back toward the source of the breathing, and that's when I felt it. The cold gaze locked onto me from the darkness. Panic surged, pushing me forward. We need to move. I started dragging Tom away, my grip still tight on the pipe. But just as we made it halfway to the stairs, a cold hand shot out from behind the shadows and wrapped tightly around my ankle. I fell, the pipe clattering from my grasp. "Get it off!" I screamed, scrambling back. Tom lunged forward, kicking whatever was holding me. The grip loosened for just a moment, but that was all I needed. I scrambled to my feet, grabbing Tom's arm, and together we raced toward the stairs. "Go! Go!" I shouted, feeling the breath behind us quicken, a dark presence closing in. As I reached the top, I felt a surge of strength coursing through me. We hadn't made it out yet, but that shadow had caught our scent, and it wouldn't let us go easily. I slammed the basement door shut and leaned against it, heart pounding in my chest. But then a chilling laugh echoed from the other side, sending a cold wave through my body. "What was that?" Tom asked, his voice barely a whisper as he backed away. I couldn't answer. Something knew we were here now, and it wasn't finished with us yet. I pressed my back against the door, breath coming in rapid bursts. The laughter faded, but the tension only grew. Darkness loomed at the edges of my vision, and all I could think about was that thing still waiting for us in the basement. "Did you hear that?" Tom whispered, his eyes wide, searching mine for reassurance. I nodded. "We have to find a way out of here." I glanced around the dim hallway, feeling the walls seem to close in on us. The only light came from a flickering bulb overhead that cast strange shadows in every corner. My heart raced again. I needed to stay calm. "Maybe we should call for help?" Tom suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. "From where?" I replied sharply. "You think anyone will hear us in this old house? We need to figure out what's going on first." The floor creaked under our feet as we cautiously moved away from the door. I led Tom to the end of the hall, where the staircase to the main floor was. A cold draft swept through, making me shiver. I held my breath, straining to listen for any signs of movement. Was the entity still there? Just then, I spotted a light switch on the wall. My hand trembled as I reached for it. The moment I flicked it on, the lights blasted to life, illuminating the hallway in an almost blinding glow. I felt an overwhelming rush of relief, until I spotted something out of place. There, on the floor beneath the staircase, lay my metal pipe, which I thought I had dropped in the basement. Except now it had fresh soil smeared across the surface, as if someone had been digging. "What the?" Tom started, stepping closer to inspect. "No!" I shouted, a wave of dread crashing over me. "Don't touch it!" He jerked his hand back, startled. "Why not?" "Because there's something wrong about it. That dirt looks too fresh. It's like it was waiting for us." Tom's expression hardened. "You think it's tied to whatever that thing is?" "I don't know." I pressed my lips together, fighting back the looming panic. "But we can't forget how it followed us. We need answers." Before Tom could respond, the lights flickered violently. A buzzing filled the air, and the light flickered out completely. We stood in complete darkness, the kind that swallowed us whole. "Shit," Tom muttered, and just then I heard it again, that deep, slow breathing, echoing through the void around us. It was everywhere. It felt closer, surrounding us, tightening its grip on reality. "Run!" I yelled, and we both bolted back toward the basement door, only to find it swinging open, an unnatural breeze swirling from the abyss below. "What is happening?" Tom yelled over the growing rush of wind. "I don't know, but we need to." In that moment, something huge surged up from the shadows, a dark mass streaming into the hallway. I caught a glimpse of its shape, shifting and roiling, and everything within me screamed to flee. Before I could react, I felt a cold hand grab my arm, pulling me backward. The scream was ripped from my throat, loud and raw, but it was lost in the wind. Then everything went dark. I gasped, drowning in the thickness of darkness. Panic gripped me as I tried to shake off the sensation of that icy hand on my arm. My heart pounded, a wild drum echoing in the void. I scrambled to regain my footing, but my legs felt heavy, shackled by fear. "Tom!" I shouted, my voice strained and desperate. There was no reply. The previous calm of our companionship had vanished. "Tom, where are you?" Silence answered me. It was more suffocating than the darkness itself. I reached out, feeling my way through the inky blackness. My fingertips brushed against something hard. Was it the wall? I couldn't tell. Just then, a faint glimmer appeared, like a distant star igniting in the pitch black. I squinted, focusing on it as it widened into a flickering light. Relief flooded through me when I recognized Tom's flashlight emerging from the depths, though his face was contorted in dread. "There you are!" he exclaimed, his voice a mix of fear and relief. "I thought I lost you. We need to move," urged, clutching his arm as I followed the beam of light. "That thing is out there." Suddenly, I heard it again, the slow, rhythmic breathing. Closer this time, as if it were right beside us. The sound sent a jolt of terror through my body. We hadn't escaped. It had followed us. "Where do we go?" Tom stammered, his light wavering in his grasp. "Upstairs!" I pointed toward the staircase, where the faint outline loomed like a lifeline. My instinct screamed at me to put distance between us and the basement. We ran, the beam of light bouncing erratically in our path. Every creak of the floorboards seemed amplified, echoing and distorting into sinister whispers around us. I could feel the entity's presence behind us, creeping along as we ascended. As we reached the landing, I turned back to look. The darkness pulsed at the foot of the stairs, swirling in a chaotic dance. I braced myself against the wall, catching my breath for a moment, the flickering light illuminating just enough for me to see Tom's terrified expression. "The attic," I suggested. "It'll be harder for it to reach us up there." "Are you sure?" Tom glanced nervously at the shadows. "What if we're just leading it to a dead end?" "Better than waiting here." I didn't give him time to contest. I grabbed his wrist, pulling him toward the attic door. As we reached it, I slammed my hand against the latch, twisted it open, and rushed inside. The attic was dim, cluttered with old furniture and boxes. My heart sank when I realized how vulnerable we were up here. Then I heard it, something scraping against the wood downstairs. It was coming to us. I clutched the flashlight tighter, centering it on the door, as if its beam could keep the horror at bay. Just when I thought we might be safe, a loud crash echoed from below, shaking the floorboards. The entity was breaking through. My stomach plummeted. "Look!" Tom gasped, pointing. "The window!" I turned just in time to see a shadow dart past, a fleeting form that vanished into the night outside. "What was that?" I whispered, a chill creeping down my spine. Before I could process it, a heavy thud reverberated through the floor. Something was climbing towards us, drawn by our fear. And then I realized the attic didn't have a proper way out. "Tom," I said, panic creeping into my voice, "we have to find a place to hide." But as I searched the room for safety, the scraping grew louder, more deliberate. That's when I saw it, dark and formless, pouring up from the stairs. It had found us. The thing was coming for us, a swirl of shadow and malice. I felt sick, trapped in this attic with nowhere to run. The sound of its approaching form echoed louder now, overwhelming my senses. "Over there!" I pointed to an old wardrobe pushed against the far wall. "We can hide inside." Tom hesitated, eyes darting toward the door. "What if it finds us in there?" "It's better than nothing," I urged, pulling him toward the wardrobe. Every second felt like a countdown, the scrape of the darkness growing closer. I threw open the wardrobe doors, revealing stale air and dust. We squeezed inside, my heart thumping as wood groaned under our weight. We pulled the doors nearly closed, leaving a small crack for light. The flashlight flickered, casting frantic shadows, and for a moment I thought it might give us away. I held my breath, listening intently. The thudding noise stopped. Had it paused right outside, or was it just toying with us? Then, in the stillness, I heard something else, a faint whisper. It drifted up from below, too soft to decipher. I leaned closer to the crack, my stomach twisting with dread. "Tom, do you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded, his brows knotted in fear. "What is it?" The whisper grew louder, a cacophony of voices layered atop one another. I tried to make sense of them, but it was like trying to catch smoke with my hands. And then, just like that, they faltered. A thunderous crash erupted from below, echoing throughout the house. I clamped my hands over my mouth to stifle a scream. It sounded like furniture shattering. Something was breaking through our last line of defense. Think, I urged Tom, frantic, searching for a plan. We were trapped, and I could sense the entity's discontent feeding off our fear. And then I felt it. Something cold pressed against my ankle. My heart raced. "Did you feel that?" I stuttered, pulling my legs closer. Tom's eyes widened, and he nodded slowly. It's in here with us." Before I could even process his words, the wardrobe rattled. The doors creaked, almost as if the darkness was prodding at the fragile walls of our hiding place. "Shh," I hissed, my breath shallow. I grasped Tom's arm, trying to anchor myself in this moment. The urge to bolt out of the wardrobe was almost overwhelming, but where would we go? As if in response to my question, the doors of the wardrobe suddenly flew open. Chills ran down my spine as two shadowy hands materialized, curling around the edge. "Tom!" I screamed, lunging back into the dark. And then everything went dark. For a paralyzing moment, I couldn't see anything. The coldness enveloped me, pressing in on all sides. I felt the rush of air, but it was different, heavy, and filled with despair. "Is this it?" I thought. I wanted to scream, to cry, but my voice was lost within the suffocating void. Just when I thought I'd succumb to the shadow, a spark flickered back into existence. I was alone again, back in the attic, but Tom was gone. Panic surged as I looked around the empty space. The furniture sat undisturbed, but Tom was nowhere to be seen. Had the thing taken him? The wardrobe, heart racing, searching for any sign of him. The front door stood ajar, swinging softly on its hinges. What if whatever had taken Tom was still here? I had to find him. But as I stepped toward the door, the shadows deepened, coiling around me like tendrils. I felt it watching, waiting. And then I heard a familiar laugh echo from deep below. I knew that voice. "Help me," it said tauntingly. I could no longer ignore the truth. I needed to confront what I had awakened. I stood frozen, the chilling echo of Tom's voice guiding me toward my doom. It was both a plea and a command, resonating deep within me. I knew I was out of options. I had to go down. As terrifying as it was, ignoring it felt even worse. I made my way to the staircase, heart pounding against my ribs as the oppressive darkness closed in around me. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the knowledge of what awaited below. What if the darkness was more than just that shadow? What if it had taken Tom for good? Fear coursed through my veins, but I pressed on. The main floor was eerily quiet, my footsteps muffled against the wood. I moved cautiously toward the basement door and glanced back, half expecting to see that ominous figure looming in the corner. But there was nothing, just silence. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the shadows that whispered around me, and opened the basement door. The musty air rushed up like an unwelcome wave, carrying with it the taste of dread. The darkness within seemed alive, pulsating with hunger and intent. Shivers ran down my spine, but I couldn't let fear dictate my choices any longer. The stairs creaked beneath me as I descended into the abyss. The flashlight wavered in my grip, illuminating the space just enough to make out the familiar contours of my basement. That feeling of being watched prickled at my skin. The vague sensation of being drawn closer to something inevitable hung in the air. "Tom," I called, voice shaking. If you're down here, answer me." My question dissipated into the darkness, leaving only a cold silence in its wake. I moved further into the basement, searching for any sign of him, any trace of my friend. But instead, I found the old metal pipe I had gripped so tightly during our time in the attic, lying sprawled on the floor. Its surface was marked with dirt, almost as if it had been pulled from the ground. My stomach twisted at the thought. Suddenly, I heard that familiar heavy breathing again, not from behind me, but right next to me. I spun around, clutching the pipe tightly like a lifeline. Shadows coiled around me, cold and suffocating. "Tom, is that you?" I whispered again, desperately. But then I saw them, pinpricks of light, flickering like distant stars. They materialized before me, growing until they burst in shapes, silhouettes of people trapped in a dance of despair. Dozens of faces twisted and shifted, their mouths moving in silent screams, and my heart sank as I realized what they were. Lost souls, perhaps victims of the darkness itself. "Help me!" they all cried. Not just Tom's voice, but countless others, all clamoring for rescue. Each word a haunting echo of sorrow. If Tom was among them, fading into the depths of oblivion, I had to act. "I'm coming for you!" I shouted, steeling myself against the surge of dread. I sprang into action, moving toward the center of the dark mass of shadows, holding the pipe out in front of me. As I approached, a chill swept through the air. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around me like choking vines. "Help us!" they beckoned. Just as I felt myself grappling with hopelessness, I caught a glimpse of Tom's familiar face among the throng, eyes wide with fear. "Don't leave me!" he yelled, reaching for me. My heart surged with determination. I took another step forward, toward the swirling darkness. "I'm not leaving you," I replied, desperately trying to cut through the cacophony of voices. At that moment, everything intensified. The shadows surged, trying to grab at me, but I swung the pipe, feeling a strange surge of energy coursing through me. The air crackled with tension, and the figures recoiled momentarily. With each swing, I felt the weight of their cries on my soul, pushing me forward and spurring my confidence. "Tom, I'm here!" I called out again, striking the darkness with renewed fervor. It felt almost sentient, bending and shifting to avoid my hits. Yet each blow sent an electric spark of light in response. I pounded the pipe against the floor, the vibrations echoing loudly. "Leave him be! Whatever you are, you don't own him!" The shadows pulsed and writhed in agony. I felt their power diminishing with every ounce of courage I summoned. Then came a deafening crack. The darkness shrieked, retreating like a storm cloud, revealing a dim light that seemed to beckon towards the back of the basement. I bolted toward it, knowing it was the exit to this nightmare, the way to save Tom and myself. As I reached out, the shadows lunged again, desperate to reclaim their hold on me. But I refused to be consumed. I gripped onto Tom's hand as we barreled toward the light, feeling its warm touch embrace us. My heart raced as the darkness clawed at my heels, but I pushed forward. "Hold on," I shouted to Tom. "We're almost there." We surged forward, and at that precise moment, the shadows recoiled, shrieking in frustration, unable to grasp us as we plunged into the light. But just as the warmth enveloped us completely, I was left with a sense of attachment. The weight of unresolved fears hung heavy in the air. I closed my eyes, praying for freedom. And when I finally opened them again, I was sprawled back on the pavement outside my house as the early morning sun filtered through the trees. Tom was beside me, unconscious but alive. Relief washed over me, but deep down, questions clawed at my mind. Had I truly confronted whatever haunted me? Or had the darkness merely retreated for a time? As I glanced back toward my home, the shadows danced momentarily in the corners of my vision. My heart sank at the realization that I would always remember those screams of lost souls, echoes of a darkness that could both linger and haunt. But for now, Tom was alive and safe, and perhaps that was enough to hold on to. I inhaled deeply, steeled by the uncertainty that lay ahead. Whatever had happened down there would never leave me. But then again, I couldn't help but wonder, would I ever be able to step back into that field and feel whole again?